You met them maybe 20 minutes ago, maybe at a party you almost didn't go to, maybe in a coffee shop where you ended up sharing a table because everywhere else was full. Maybe at a work event where you were both standing slightly off to the side, watching everyone else perform enthusiasm. And somewhere in those 20 minutes, something happened that you cannot quite explain. The conversation stopped feeling like conversation. The careful little distance that exists between strangers just dissolved, and you were talking to them the way you talk to people you've known for years. You were laughing at things that wouldn't be funny to anyone else in the room. You were finishing each other's sentences without it feeling rehearsed. You were saying things you didn't usually say out loud, and they were nodding like they already knew. And when the night ended and you walked away from each other, something inside you felt slightly dazed because you had just experienced one of the rarest and least understood things a human being can experience. You had clicked with someone, and you knew in a way that didn't need to be argued that this was different from the 100 polite interactions you'd had that month. This wasn't politeness. This wasn't social skill. This was something else entirely, something your nervous system recognized before your conscious mind had time to catch up. If you've ever had this happen, you also know how confusing it is afterward. Because there's no good vocabulary for it. People will ask you how the night was, and you'll say it was great. You met someone really cool, and that doesn't begin to describe what actually happened. The word cool is what you say when you don't have words for the real thing. The real thing is that for a brief stretch of time, the loneliness that most people carry around without even realizing they're carrying it just lifted. And you remembered what it felt like to be met. Not impressed, not entertained, met. I want to talk about what's actually happening when this occurs, because it isn't magic, even though it feels like it. There's a real psychological process underneath it, and once you understand the process, two things change. You stop feeling crazy for taking these moments so seriously, and you start to recognize the difference between connection that's real and connection that's performance, which is one of the most important distinctions a human being can learn to make. Let me start with what's happening in your brain in those first few minutes with someone you eventually click with. Your nervous system is doing something it does with every new person it encounters. It's running a constant background calculation faster than thought about whether this person is safe. Not safe in the dramatic sense of, will they hurt you? Safe in a much more specific sense. Will they accept the version of me that I'm about to show them? Will they punish me if I relax? Will I have to perform a slightly different version of myself to keep them comfortable? Or can I just be the person I actually am? That calculation is running every time you meet anyone. And most of the time the answer is some shade of partial. You can be most of yourself, but not all of yourself. You can be honest, but not too honest. You can show some of your humor, but not the weird parts. You can talk about what you're working on, but not what you're actually scared of underneath it. So you adjust. You give people the version of you that fits the room, and they give you the version of them that fits the room. And most human interaction is two carefully edited drafts, trying to figure out how to be in the same space. But every once in a while, with no warning at all, your nervous system runs the calculation and the answer comes back completely different. The answer comes back as full permission, as if your body has decided, before you've consciously decided anything, that this person doesn't require translation, that you can drop the editing, that you can show up as the actual draft instead of the polished one. And the moment that permission arrives, everything inside you that was holding tension just lets go. The conversation gets faster. The laughter gets easier. You start saying things you didn't plan to say. They start saying things they didn't plan to say. Both of you can feel that something unusual is happening, and neither of you can quite name it. There's a concept called emotional attunement, and it describes the capacity of two nervous systems to mirror each other in real time. When two attuned people are in conversation, their breathing rates begin to align. Their heart rates begin to track each other. Their facial expressions echo each other in tiny micro-movements that neither person is consciously producing. Their speech patterns sync up. It's happening underneath awareness, in the parts of the body that don't ask permission from the conscious mind. It's two organisms recognizing each other as belonging to the same emotional weather and adjusting accordingly. This is why a click feels so physical when it happens. Because it actually is physical. You're not imagining the warmth in your chest. You're not imagining the way your shoulders relax 2 minutes into the conversation. Your body recognized something before your mind did, and your body responded by lowering its defenses. That's not a metaphor. That's a measurable shift in your nervous system, and it's part of why these moments feel so disorienting in the best possible way. You're feeling the absence of a strain you didn't realize you were carrying with everyone else. Now here's where it gets even more interesting, because the question almost everyone asks at this point is the same. Why this person and not somebody else? Why does this happen with one human being out of every 500 you meet, and never with the other 499? What is it about this specific match that creates the feeling when you've talked to people who are technically more interesting, technically more accomplished, technically more attractive, technically more anything, and felt nothing close to it? The answer is something most people never get told, but it changes everything once you hear it. Clicking is not about similarity in the way most people think. It's not about having the same hobbies or the same job or the same background or the same opinions. Plenty of people share all of those things and feel nothing for each other. Clicking is about something much harder to fake and much rarer to find. It's about a similarity in how you carry yourself emotionally. A similarity in your default speed. A similarity in how you process the world before you put it into words. A similarity in what you find quietly funny, what you find quietly sad, what you find worth pausing for. These things are not on anyone's resume. They're not on a dating profile. They don't show up in the answers to any of the questions most people use to evaluate strangers. But your nervous system reads them in the first 30 seconds of being near someone, and it knows almost immediately whether this person is moving through life at the same internal frequency as you. When the frequencies match, every other gap stops mattering. You can be from completely different worlds. You can be 20 years apart in age. You can have nothing in common on paper. None of that interferes, because the connection isn't happening on the paper level. It's happening on the level underneath the paper, where the rhythm of you meets the rhythm of them, and they recognize each other as siblings. This is also why the people you click with often feel familiar in a way you can't explain. People will say things like, "I felt like I'd known her forever within an hour." People will say, "I don't know why, but I trust him already." Those statements aren't romantic exaggerations. They're descriptions of what happens when your emotional rhythm meets a matching rhythm for what might be the first time in your life. You feel like you've known this person forever because you've known this rhythm forever. It's been your own rhythm the whole time. You just hadn't met another person carrying it before, and now you have, and your whole system is responding to the unfamiliar relief of not being the only one. There's a part of this experience that almost nobody talks about, and I want to talk about it carefully because it matters. The people who click most powerfully with others, the people who have the deepest unspoken bonds, the people who form connections that other people describe as intense or unusual, are very often people who spent years feeling lonely in rooms full of friends, not because their friends were bad, not because they didn't love their friends, but because they knew somewhere underneath the friendliness that they were translating themselves all the time, that they were being a slightly edited version of themselves with everyone they knew, and that the unedited version was something almost no one had ever met. So when they finally stumble into a person whose presence doesn't require translation, the relief is enormous, disproportionate, almost overwhelming, because they're not just enjoying a nice conversation. They're experiencing the lifting of a loneliness they've been carrying so long. It had started to feel like a feature of existence rather than a circumstance that could change. If you have ever cried after a particularly good conversation with someone you barely knew, this is why. You weren't crying about the conversation. You were crying because some part of you didn't know it was still possible to be met that way, and being met reminded that part of you what it had been missing. There's also a darker side to understanding this, and I'd be doing you a disservice if I didn't mention it. Because once you know what a real click feels like, you become much more aware of how rare it actually is, and that awareness can be painful. You start to notice all the relationships in your life that don't have it. You notice all the polite, functional, pleasant connections you've been treating as your social life, and you realize that very few of them actually involve being seen at the level you now know is possible. That recognition can be quietly devastating if you let it. Some people respond to it by getting cynical, by deciding that intimacy is overrated, by going back to performing because performing is easier than wanting something most encounters won't provide. But there's another response, and it's the one I'd encourage if you can find your way to it. You can let the awareness make you more honest about what you're actually looking for. You can stop spending your limited social energy on connections that drain you and start protecting the rare ones that don't. You can stop apologizing for needing more from human contact than most human contact provides. Because here's something the research keeps confirming, even though our culture keeps trying to ignore it. Human beings are not designed to be sustained by quantity of connection. They're designed to be sustained by quality of connection. A handful of people who actually see you will do more for your nervous system than 100 who like the version of you perform. This isn't sentiment. This is biology. Studies of long-term well-being consistently show that the depth of a few key relationships predicts emotional health more reliably than the breadth of someone's social network. The number of people in your contacts list does not protect you from anything. The number of people who know who you actually are when nobody is watching. That's what protects you. So when you click with someone, what you're encountering is one of the few things in human life that genuinely cannot be manufactured. You cannot force a click with someone you don't have one with. You can be friendly with them. You can be kind to them. You can build a respectful relationship with them. But that particular feeling of mutual recognition, of nervous systems sliding into the same rhythm without effort, only happens when it happens. Which is exactly why, when it does happen, you're supposed to take it seriously. You're not supposed to pretend it's casual. You're not supposed to play it cool. You're not supposed to lose touch with the person because you got busy or because you weren't sure if they felt it as strongly as you did. That's the part where a lot of people make a mistake they later regret. They have a profound experience of clicking with someone. They walk away dazed by it, and then they let the moment quietly slip into the past because they don't trust what happened. They tell themselves it was probably a fluke. They tell themselves the person was probably just being nice. They tell themselves they were probably reading too much into it. And 6 months later, when they realize they've barely thought about anyone else they met that whole year, they wish they had said something. They wish they had reached out. They wish they had done the slightly uncomfortable thing of telling the person, without needing it to mean anything in particular, that the conversation had stayed with them. I want to give you permission, if you need it, to take these moments seriously when they happen to you. Not to overthink them, not to force them into being more than they are, but to honor them, to follow up, to say the slightly vulnerable thing, to recognize that one of the great quiet tragedies of modern social life is the number of real connections that get lost because both people were too cool to admit they felt something. The unspoken bond is supposed to become spoken eventually, not in some dramatic declaration, just in small acts of trust. A message that says I was thinking about what you said, a coffee that doesn't have an agenda, a willingness to let the friendship matter. And if you're someone who has clicked with very few people in your life, I want you to hear this last part especially clearly. The rarity of it is not a sign that something is wrong with you. The rarity of it is a sign that you're carrying a particular emotional rhythm that doesn't match many of the rhythms around you, and that when it does match, the match is going to feel like coming home. The people who click easily with everyone usually do so because they're moving at the surface speed of social life, and the surface is where most rhythms can mingle without difficulty. The people who only click with a few, but click profoundly when they do, are usually moving at a deeper speed, and depth has fewer matches. That isn't a flaw. That's a specific kind of inner architecture that's worth protecting. So the next time you meet someone and feel that strange, unmistakable dropping away of the usual friction, the next time a stranger starts to feel like they've always been a friend, the next time the conversation goes somewhere you didn't expect and you walk away feeling slightly more like yourself than you did before, I want you to recognize what just happened. That wasn't small. That wasn't ordinary. That was your nervous system finding one of its rare matches in a world that doesn't offer very many of them. And the only appropriate response to that kind of finding is to pay attention, to be brave about it, to not let the moment pass quietly into the place where good things go when nobody chose them on purpose. The unspoken bond doesn't ask for much. It doesn't need to be turned into anything dramatic. It just needs to be acknowledged. It just needs you to trust what you felt. It just needs you to believe that the part of you that recognized the match knew exactly what it was doing, and that what it found is worth staying connected to, even when staying connected is the slightly harder thing to do. You're not crazy for taking these moments seriously. You're paying attention to something most people are too distracted to notice. And the people who learn to honor their clicks instead of dismissing them are the people who end up, years later, surrounded by a small, quiet, deeply chosen circle of human beings who actually see them, which, in the end, is the only kind of belonging that ever really feeds anyone.